March 1943. Over the frigid North Sea, a Luftwaffe pilot closes in on what should be easy prey. The aircraft ahead is grotesque, a flying greenhouse cobbled together from perspex and aluminium tubing. It wallows through the air like a wounded duck, no defensive armament visible, no escort fighters protecting it. The German's finger moves towards the firing button. Then he sees it properly. The glass nose, the navigation equipment, the radio aerials bristling from the fuselage. His squadron leader's briefing echoes in his mind. Leave the ugly ones alone. They're bringing our boys home. He peels away, leaving the ungainly aircraft to continue its lonely patrol. That ugly aircraft was the Vickers Wellington fitted with ASV radar, and the Luftwaffe's reluctance to shoot it down would prove one of the war's strangest tactical blunders. The Wellington itself was already operational when war broke out, a twin-engine bomber that had earned grudging respect through its geodetic construction. But these modified versions, these radar-equipped maritime patrol aircraft, were something else entirely. Their crews called them pregnant ducks. The Germans called them the glass planes. Nobody called them beautiful. Yet by 1944, these ungainly machines would sink more U-boats than any other aircraft type in Coastal Command's arsenal. The Luftwaffe's decision to grant them unofficial immunity, born from a misguided sense of chivalry, would cost the Kriegsmarine dearly. This is the story of how Britain's ugliest warplane became its most lethal submarine hunter, and how German mercy became German catastrophe. In 1940, Britain faced an existential crisis beneath the waves. U-boats were strangling the Atlantic lifelines, sinking merchant vessels faster than shipyards could replace them. During the first 6 months of 1941 alone, German submarines sent over 2 million tons of Allied shipping to the bottom. The mathematics were brutally simple. If the rate continued, Britain would starve before American industry could tip the balance. Existing countermeasures proved woefully inadequate. Surface vessels could only detect submarines at impossibly close ranges. Aircraft could cover vast areas but only in daylight, and only if the U-boat remained surfaced. The submarines had worked out a devastating counter-tactic. Travel on the surface at night, submerge at dawn. A U-boat could cross the Atlantic faster on the surface using its diesel engines than it could manage submerged on battery power. The night belonged to the submarines. The Royal Navy tried illumination flares, but they merely announced the aircraft's presence. Searchlights mounted on aircraft proved even worse, turning the hunter into a brilliantly lit target. Statistical analysis revealed the grim truth. 94% of U-boat transits occurred at night, and Allied aircraft detected less than 2% of them. Coastal Command needed eyes that could see in the dark, across dozens of miles of empty ocean, and distinguish a submarine's conning tower from the endless waves. The technology required seemed impossible. Radar existed, certainly, but sets capable of detecting something as small as a submarine from a moving aircraft platform remained purely theoretical. The challenge demanded equipment sensitive enough to spot a metal tube in mountainous seas, yet rugged enough to survive installation in a vibrating, freezing aircraft flying through Atlantic storms. It seemed an unsolvable equation. The solution emerged from the telecommunications research establishment at Swanage, refined through desperate collaboration between scientists who understood radio waves and aircrew, who understood what actually happened at 3,000 feet over hostile waters. They designated it ASV Mark II, Air-to-Surface Vessel Radar. The system operated at 1.5 meters wavelength, bouncing radio pulses off anything metal within range. The transmitter generated roughly 1 kilowatt of power, about what a small electric heater consumes, but focused into a directional beam. That beam swept across the ocean, and when it struck a U-boat's conning tower, a tiny fraction reflected back. The receiver, sensitive enough to detect signals 1/1,000th the strength of the original transmission, picked up that faint echo. The time delay between transmission and reception revealed the target's distance. The direction of the antenna revealed its bearing. Installing this equipment transformed the Wellington beyond recognition. The radar's aerials sprouted from the aircraft's sides like mechanical ribs. Two arrays jutted from the fuselage, each consisting of multiple dipole elements that gave the aircraft its distinctive skeletal appearance. The nose had to be extended and glazed entirely in perspex to accommodate the operator and his cathode ray display screens. Additional equipment racks filled what had been the bomb aimer's position. The radar operator sat surrounded by glass, clearly visible from outside, hunched over glowing green displays that showed approaching contacts as luminous blips. Total additional weight exceeded 400 kilograms. The aerials created enough drag to reduce the Wellington's cruise speed by roughly 15 knots. The aircraft became slower, more vulnerable, and far, far uglier. But it could see U-boats in total darkness from 15 miles away. Manufacturing the radar sets pushed British electronics production to its limits. The cavity magnetrons required for the transmitters had to be hand-tuned, each one built by skilled technicians at factory sites dispersed across the Midlands to prevent a single bombing raid from crippling production. The Perspex nose sections came from a facility in Birmingham that normally produced greenhouse panels. By late 1942, roughly 24 ASV-equipped Wellingtons were entering service monthly, though exact production figures remained classified even decades later. Each aircraft required 40 hours of specialist installation work beyond standard assembly. The radar sets themselves cost approximately £3,000 each, roughly equivalent to 3 average houses. Britain was investing its diminishing industrial capacity in making bombers slower and uglier. The gamble seemed insane. Operational deployment began in early 1942, though crews needed time to master the temperamental equipment. Squadron 172 at Chivalry became the first unit fully equipped with ASV Wellingtons. Their patrol patterns took them west into the Atlantic Gap, that mid-ocean area beyond land-based fighter cover where U-boats prowled with impunity. Flight Sergeant Morrison's crew recorded the first confirmed ASV-assisted kill on the 6th of July 1942, detecting U-502 at 13 miles range and sinking her with depth charges before she could crash dive. The psychological impact on U-boat crews proved almost as valuable as the physical destruction. Submarines that had owned the night suddenly found themselves hunted. Captain Lieutenant Schroeder, captured after his U-boat's destruction, described the terror. "We could no longer trust the darkness. Death came from empty skies." If you are finding this interesting, a quick subscribe helps more than you know. Yet here emerged the peculiar mercy that would doom the U-boat fleet. Luftwaffe pilots, encountering these radar-equipped Wellingtons over the Bay of Biscay, recognized them immediately. The grotesque perspex nose, the bristling aerials, the absence of gun turrets in standard positions. Intelligence briefings had explained their purpose: navigation aid and air-sea rescue coordination. The Luftwaffe assumed these aircraft guided lost bombers home or located downed air crews. Shooting them down seemed unsporting, contrary to the aviator's code that transcended national boundaries. Orders filtered through fighter squadrons: engage standard Wellingtons, but leave the glass nose variants alone. They were saving lives, not taking them. The fact that they were saving British submarine hunters while sending German submariners to the bottom apparently escaped notice until far too late. The Germans had their own maritime patrol aircraft, primarily the Focke-Wulf FW-200 Condor. It possessed longer range than the Wellington, carrying more fuel in its larger airframe. But it lacked effective radar until 1943, relying on visual detection that rendered it useless at night. When the Luftwaffe finally fitted Rostock radar equipment to maritime patrol aircraft, the sets proved unreliable and short-ranged. A Condor might detect a convoy at 8 miles in perfect conditions. The ASV Wellington could track individual submarines at 15 miles in storms. American alternatives existed. The Lockheed Hudson and Consolidated Catalina both served with coastal command. But neither matched the Wellington's combination of range, radar capability, and ruggedness. The Hudson lacked the endurance for mid-Atlantic patrols. The Catalina, though long-ranged, proved painfully slow and vulnerable to fighter attack. The ugly Wellington occupied a unique niche, just fast enough to escape most fighters, just capable enough to reach the critical hunting grounds, and equipped with radar far superior to anything else flying maritime patrol missions in 1942. By mid-1943, the statistics told an undeniable story. A SV-equipped Wellingtons, representing less than 15% of coastal command strength, accounted for over 40% of confirmed U-boat kills. The Bay of Biscay, which U-boats had to cross when transiting between Atlantic patrol areas and French bases, became a killing ground. Submarines could no longer surface at night to recharge batteries and make speed. They crept across submerged, batteries depleting, crews exhausted. Transit times doubled, operational efficiency collapsed. Admiral Donitz's war diary entries from this period reveal mounting desperation. In May 1943, he lost 41 U-boats. By July, he temporarily withdrew submarines from the North Atlantic entirely. The Battle of the Atlantic, which had seemed lost 2 years earlier, turned decisively in Britain's favour. The ASV Wellington's impact extended beyond tonnage sunk. The mere possibility of radar-equipped aircraft forced U-boats to remain submerged, limiting their operational effectiveness even when no aircraft were actually present. Submarine commanders reported psychological strain affecting crew performance. The certainty that darkness no longer provided sanctuary eroded morale. Several U-boat captains, interrogated after capture, mentioned specifically the glass-nosed devils that appeared from nowhere. One described seeing the perspex nose glinting in moonlight seconds before depth charges bracketed his submarine, forcing an emergency dive that nearly crushed the hull. The ugly aircraft had become objects of dread. Later developments would improve upon the ASV Wellington. The lee light, a powerful searchlight switched on during the final attack run, solved the problem of actually seeing the target during the last moments before weapons release. Centimetric radar, operating at shorter wavelengths, provided better resolution and proved harder to detect. The de Havilland Mosquito eventually took over maritime strike duties with even better performance, but the Wellington equipped with ASV Mark II did the crucial work during the crucial period. It held the line when the battle hung in the balance. It proved that radar could find submarines in the dark Atlantic. It broke the U-boat fleet's morale and forced tactical changes that cascaded through the entire German submarine campaign. Several ASV Wellingtons survived the war. One resides at the Royal Air Force Museum, Hendon, its perspex nose and aerial arrays preserved, a monument to the aircraft that proved beauty means nothing when effectiveness is everything. Visitors still comment on its ungainly appearance, the awkward protrusions, the greenhouse nose that seems stuck on as an afterthought. They're seeing exactly what Luftwaffe pilots saw in 1943, an ugly aircraft that deserved mercy, that seemed too pathetic to warrant ammunition. Those German pilots were being decent men. They were also handing victory to their enemies. The ugly British plane the Luftwaffe refused to shoot down proved ugly for a reason. Every ungainly feature served a purpose. The perspex nose housed the operator and displays that turned invisible radio echoes into actionable targeting data. The skeletal aerials caught those echoes from submarines that thought themselves safe in darkness. The loss of speed and grace brought detection range and hunting capability. Form followed function with absolute ruthlessness. The Wellington became ugly because it became effective, and in war, only effectiveness matters. When that Luftwaffe pilot turned away in March 1943, granting mercy to what he thought was an air-sea rescue aircraft, he was participating in his own side's defeat. Every glass plane he spared went on to hunt U-boats. Every submarine those aircraft sank was one less threat to Allied shipping, one more nail in the Kriegsmarine's coffin. The chivalry was real. The consequences were catastrophic. By the time German Fighter Command recognized their mistake and rescinded the unofficial protection, the Battle of the Atlantic had already turned. The ugly planes had done their work. Britain's lifelines remained open. The submarines had lost, and it had all happened whilst the enemy looked away, unwilling to shoot something so ungainly, so obviously non-threatening, so breathtakingly ugly, that it simply had to be harmless. The ugliest plane in Coastal Command had proved the most lethal, and the Luftwaffe had learned too late that in war you should always kill the ugly ones first.